Hi, everybody. It's Chris Grimm, and this is Deep Work Fast, where every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, I come to you with new tools, tips, concepts, stuff to help you be the best that you can be in all the roles that you fill in your life, at work and at home, so that you can have more of what you want, not more situations that you say you don't want. So today, I want to talk to you about the blog that we dropped yesterday. It is on our website, and Mission Control Heather will put that in the chat so that if you have not seen it, you can grab it. And this week, I just focused on something that I hear a lot from people. No matter what the context is for our coaching, I hear often that people have trouble quieting their mind, but they don't like to meditate. So you might be one of those people. I would not be surprised because people tend to fall in, I think, two camps. And there's a bigger camp of people that I hate meditation. I can't meditate. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. Or there's people who have figured it out because they found a way or an app or something that helps them. Today, I wanted to bring you some alternatives that I suggest to people on a regular basis. And I know they work. And they have nothing to do with you sitting with your legs crossed, I think, which is what most people think about meditation, is that like you're sitting on a pillow somewhere, or whatever. So that's good, by the way, and it actually really works if in fact you take it on as a practice. But if in fact you are not yet ready to do that, I want to give you some alternatives. And the way you would know if you need some of these alternatives, I don't mean to be talking down to anyone or telling you something that probably feels obvious, but I find that oftentimes um, the condition of having an overactive mind, right? Like you can't quiet your thoughts, or you tend to, maybe when you get hijacked by anger, intense emotions, fight or flight response, that your mind goes crazy, right? That you can't stop talking about problems, or you can maybe get through the day with all the other stuff that you have to do. And then when you get home at night, or when you're in the car, when you have, or on an airplane or something, right, that your brain now wants to bring to your attention situations that maybe you're worried about. Because we tend to have an overactive mind. Most of us have it all the time in some way, shape, or form. But when we have things that we're worried about that are happening in the future, so that's called future tripping, by the way, is when we are thinking about things that are going to happen and we're worried about all the ways that that could turn out. Or we're thinking about things in the past that we wish would have turned out differently. And so, one, I want you to know that a lot of people have that. And because of it, and because it's not a really great way to spend your time, it hinders your productivity. But also, if your mind kind of runs out of control, what I find is that people tend to go down, sometimes I call it the rat hole, or they just follow a narrative about what their mind is constructing of a possible future. And even though there might be evidence that what you're afraid of is never going to happen, your mind might be so afraid of that outcome that you create a story in your mind about how that might play out. Now, of course, your intention isn't to create something bad, right? Our intention is usually to protect ourselves or protect others or protect our business or whatever. But unfortunately, you have to understand there are parts of our brain that don't know the difference between what is real, that we think about, like real actually happening in real life in this moment, and things that it thinks is real, right? So by creating those ideas in your brain, parts of you don't know that they're not real. And so they believe that the fear is going to happen. And that's why there are things. And another day, I'll talk to you about self-fulfilling prophecy. But let's just stay in this today because I want you to have some ways that you start to take on as a practice. So, first, what I'd like you to do is listen to what I'm about to explain to you or read the blog. It takes about 2 minutes, and adopt one of these four practices if, in fact, you have not yet decided to meditate as a practice, because these are things that can get you on your way to having a way to stop your mind from taking things too far and kind of ruminating out of control in a way that takes you out of the present moment. And like I talked about a minute ago, what that does is it hurts our productivity, right? It distracts us. Sometimes if the feelings that those thoughts generate feel so bad that I know most people will tell me, and I've even had it myself, where the feelings that are coming up because of the thoughts, this story that we're playing out, that we might need to find a coping mechanism if in fact we're not doing healthy things like meditation and breath work and those things. And so we go to our coping mechanisms, right? Some people drink, they surf the internet. I've caught myself before, and after 20 minutes on TikTok or on Instagram or something, I'm like, what am I doing? I actually have things to do. Why did I do that? And usually I can trace it back to a moment where I started like thinking about stuff and kind of went off track. And it's amazing how that happens. And I watch it happen with people. Okay, so let's get to the four things. So there are four ways, if you will, or practices that you can quiet your mind. So, the first thing, you've heard this term before, it's called reflection. And so, what I am suggesting to you is that you adopt a practice, which means you have a scheduled or at least a cadence of doing this thing, just like if you were practicing to run a race or to play a sport or to play a musical instrument. It's a practice. It means that you do something on a regular basis to get better at it. So, reflection is a great way to calm your mind when you make like a little date with yourself, like maybe in the morning and in the night. I like to do reflection for about 10 minutes, 3 times a day. I do it once in the morning after I've had my coffee and before I get on my first Zoom or get in the car to go somewhere, etc. Right? Just 10 minutes. And that reflection time, I try to have discipline. So I'm going to urge you to do the same, that for that 10 minutes, you protect it. You put away the devices. You don't answer the phone or the text messages. You're not doing email. You're not sitting here in front of your computer with stuff looking at you that needs your attention. You do it in a space where it's just you and maybe a journal or something. I often have like a moleskin or something with me, someplace that I can write my notes. I would highly recommend that you not try to type it into a device because that device has all these other notifications and things that are going to steal you away. So you have discipline for whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever you need. Like I said, I do this 3 times a day. I do it in the morning. I usually do it midday in between my other meetings, maybe when I take a break to eat lunch or feed my dog. And I do it at the end of the day too, like after I'm done with everything, but before I turn everything off and leave this office and go into the other parts of my house where I'm not going to work anymore. Or if I'm out on the road, right, in between the meeting and dinner or whatever, where I can just create some space. So that's the goal here with reflection. I don't want you to take this for granted because I'm sure there's a part of you kind of going, what does that actually mean, Chris? Like thinking about stuff? It is thinking about stuff. But instead of allowing your brain to be in charge, you're going to take on a practice that's highly intentional and you create space and you decide what you're going to reflect on. And the fact that it's a reflection, you can reflect on the past, like you can reflect on things that have just happened. You can reflect on something that is current, like how am I feeling about this? Why am I feeling nervous about this thing? Or, like I said, at the end of the day, I often reflect on the day. I think about all my meetings that I've just had so that I can make sure that I can clean up that day. All the loose ends are taken care of so that I can turn off and not take them to bed with me, take them into dinner with the family, whatever, right? So that you can tidy it up. And that discipline around reflection will help you get all the clutter out of your brain. And I want to say one more thing about reflection. What it is not meant to do is create activity in your brain that's going to now stay on for 10 or 12 hours or even into the next day. I don't want you to get stuck thinking about only bad things. And so often with my reflection, my goal is learning something, right? That actually is my goal for myself when I'm reflecting, which is if I'm going to think about something that has already happened, my goal is what can I learn from that? Like whether it was a good situation or a not great situation, I want to make sure I'm always getting better. This is why I'm doing this with you. And so taking on that practice of reflection is actually a learning activity, and it will help your mind focus and clear up that clutter. The second thing that I wrote about in the blog, again, you can read this, is to do a brain dump. So if you are having a moment where you're feeling frazzled, where your brain is like overwhelmed, maybe you have a lot going on at home and at work, and so you're feeling like it's all piled up and you've got lists of things everywhere, we call this the brain dump. We even do this at our retreats before people go into silence. The first thing I say is, okay, let's get everything out of the way. Let's clear that clutter, whatever's piled up in your brain, whatever things are hanging there trying to get your attention. And maybe there's, housekeeping things. Those are things like I need to renew my driver's license. I actually do. So it's with me all the time. Uh, and it's not going to get done until I put it on a list because that's how I work. And so the brain dump is for you to get everything out of the way. So again, you don't carry them into your evening, into your sleep, right? Because many of us have poor sleep habits. And one of the things that's causing that is that when we end our days and our work days, we're not actually like closing it up. And working from home, what I notice now that we have more remote work from home situations since COVID, a lot of people are doing that still a few days a week at least, is that there's a blur between home and work. And so if you don't have a practice where you reflect and then just brain dump all those things, all the clutter, well, then you're going to carry it around with you and probably drift off. Even if you're watching a movie or something, it's going to come back and sit there and try to get your attention. And then next thing you know, you're sitting on the couch with your family and you're doing an email. Don't do that. Your family probably doesn't want you to do that either. So reflection, brain dump. Third thing is stretching. So look, you can take time in your day, and I highly, highly recommend that you get up during the day, that you don't sit the whole day, that you, if you need to, schedule breaks so that you get up and get outside and move your body. It is really important that you do this. And I had Heather, thank you, Mission Control. If you haven't done that yet, Heather, that would be great, is put the YouTube video with just some quick stretches. I'm focusing on a lot, you'll notice in my blogs, but also in my videos on helping you try to reduce the stress and tension in your neck and in your shoulders and in the back of your head. You may or may not notice that the more we sit and that we're on a computer, and depending on the chair that you have, depending on whether you're like my computer is up on one of these little tables. Some people have it down low, up high, whatever. We have a lot of stress on our body in ways that, of course, our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, well, they were doing something different. They weren't sitting every day with devices all the time. And so there's a lot of stress that gets held, not only emotional stress and anxiety, but physical tension that is held here because of the way we sit and because of the way we work. So I want to help you by saying part of the way that you can calm your mind is actually to have an intentional 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, maybe 10 minutes even, where you stretch that out. So you could also stretch by taking a walk and doing stretches of other parts of your body. I'm an advocate for all of that. But at the least, take on some practices where you are doing some neck and shoulder stretches on a regular basis, where you are alleviating the stress. The video that Heather just put on there, it's short. It's a few minutes long. You can watch it, and then you can practice some of those stretches, which, like I said, they don't take very long, but they get huge benefit because one, as the tension is released out of your neck and shoulders, you'll feel that relief. You will feel better. But what we also know is that when we're holding that really tight tension in our shoulder, our neck, and in the back of our head, specifically our vagus nerve area, which sits right there at the base of our skull and our neck, that it actually, that anxiety feeds, if our brain's already overactive and feeling anxious because of the stories it's telling itself, and that's driving emotion. If you have a lot of stress and tension in your body, it's almost like the whole system starts to react to that and tell itself, oh yeah, things must be bad because we feel bad. Right? So we're having emotional feelings of bad, but we're also having physical sensations that don't feel good because of that tension and potentially that pain. So we want to uncouple that and calm it all down by adding those stretches into your routine. And then the last thing, which I talk about a lot, and I can't really stress it enough to all of you. And I know some people are like, wow, I can't believe you're trying to teach me how to breathe. Um, yeah, well, mindful breathing can absolutely help you. So if you can't meditate, one thing that you can do is take on a practice of consciously, like purposefully breathing. So I put a video, thank you, Heather, there for you. It's Matteo Pistano. I'm a huge new fan of his. He also has a book. I'll plug it right now because I just think it's fantastic. I've given it to a number of people. It's called Breathe How You Want to Feel, your breathing toolkit for better health, restorative sleep, and deeper connection. I have to tell you, he's really, I told him he's written what I think is the playbook that we all should have about how our, not just our lungs, but how our whole respiratory, our nervous system, our autonomic system versus our parasympathetic, and how all of that is working together on a regular basis and really, really impacts how we feel and is impacted by how we feel and how we think. And so I had Heather put box breathing. I have taught that before. If you don't know box breathing is used by people like the Navy SEALs. It's quite prolific. It's also used by, well, anybody can use it. And the purpose of it is for you to take a moment where you stop your thoughts might be out of control, or pause in the moments of stress, and that you use a box, right? So you could use your finger to trace that box, and you can watch his video to learn about it. The box just helps us ground to 4 segments of breathing: inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, usually for a count of 4 or a count of 7. So taking control of your breath like that, so taking over what is usually automatic or a default, will help you slow down whatever your body's response to stress or anxiety or whatever's going on for you. And the reason of that is because when we can slow down our breath, we can actually slow down how fast our heart is beating, the flow of all the blood and the chemicals in our body. And hopefully, then by focusing on a structured breathing process, or what is also called mindful breathing, that's all that is, by the way. I know mindful is one of those words that people think is woo-woo. It just means paying attention to what you're doing and intentionally doing it. So I highly recommend you try box breathing. I also have a blog that's available called 478. That is also a type of mindful, structured breathing. They all do the same thing. They help you be what my friend Marley Taylor calls boss of your brain. Right? You taking over and not letting your brain get so out of control that it stresses you out more. So try those things. Check out those videos, grab the blog, and I will see you next week. Also, I will make sure on one of these that I put the link to Matteo's book if you're interested, because it's so good. Who says that? Me. I want you to be your best at everything. So go get that stuff, and I'll see you next week.